Hi everyone in English 2323, it's Dr. E and I'm here with your week 2 instructional video. Let me first start off by, I'm still very much feeling this way about the book situation and I'm so sorry for any confusion. Usually the publishing company lets folks know if they've updated the edition and I didn't receive that memo. So I'm really sorry about any of the confusion, stress, anything that developed in trying to access your course text. So if you still have any questions about that, please let me know, but I am going to review a few things that hopefully will be helpful. So let me go ahead and jump to the content area. And in the content area, there is the module on book and additional readings. And so I've worked to update that information here with an image of the text. Let me make sure you can see that. An image of the text so that you can see what it looks like when it comes time to go ahead and purchase that. It is volume 2 of the shorter 11th edition, so some of you did have questions about that when it came to purchasing, so just know that that information is here. If you click on this link, it will take you to the Norton website and this is what you'll see. And I think the confusion even more so developed when you click the view all options. There's a package 1 and package 2. We want package 2 because we are in the second section of the course. We're not in the Beowulf and Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. We're not in the earlier times in England and Great Britain. We're in package 2. So it does, once you click on it, let me go ahead and pause so I can resize this. So this is what the text looks like. This is definitely one of those pages that you'll want to bookmark somewhere on your device, whatever kind of device you're using, so that it's just there, it's ready to go. You don't have any concerns about going and having to search it all over again. And this is what the book will look like. If you go to the content area, it will show you, we're in the right timeline. We're starting with the romantic period. That's actually going to be our first reading. And if you click up here, we have the table of contents. And so we are in the romantic period. So just don't be overwhelmed by just the various options with an ebook such as this, especially because if you have other ebooks for other classes, they all are a little bit different, I'm sure. So just click on volume D, and this is where you can then select the specific readings. You can, of course, scroll through all of this and click through, but that can take a really long time. So we're starting this week with our period introduction on the romantic period. So if you click, the book usually starts, our editors have chosen to start with a kind of timeline, very brief, just giving us an overview of what the romantic period consists of. If you scroll, then you'll be able to switch pages. Again, my view is not quite enough. And you'll just click through. And so the editors have done a really good job so you can listen as you read, which is really nice because some of us are going to take information in a bit better if we're hearing it or if we're listening to it as we're reading along, whatever is going to be, something that works for you. If you scroll, you'll see we have some page numbers here. You can watch some short videos, which are really nice and helpful, just adding a little bit of detail. So you're going to read the whole romantic period reading, so it's all of this. And just know that this is not the most spicy, exciting, sexy reading we're going to be doing. These background chapters are lengthy, so I definitely suggest that you don't just sit and read it all at one time because it's just too much. It's overwhelming. You have a lot of dates and information, names getting thrown at you. So just maybe break it apart into different sessions based on how the introduction to the time period is broken down here on the left-hand side. Our readings in the future will not necessarily be this lengthy or this kind of, I don't want to say dry because I find it very informative and very interesting, but that's me, right? But these background chapters on the different periods we'll be working through are just so important in giving us a sense of who these authors were, what lives they were living, what life was like during this time period, all of those really helpful details to give us a sense of, okay, when we sit down to then read, say, The Mouse's Petition, the poem by Anna Leticia Barbal that you also need to read this week, we kind of get a sense of what she was going through, living through this time period. Okay, so if we then go ahead and go back to the table of contents, sorry. So then we have Anna Leticia Barbald is here. With every author, we will have a biography that you need to read, again, giving us more of a sense of the context, or, you know, what she was going through in her lifetime, what was going on during her lifetime. And then you'll want to read The Mouse's Petition. So if you scroll, give me a second, let me pause. All right, so it appears I've come across the first thing that is different about this newer edition. They have not included Barbald's The Mouse's Petition, which I can't tell you how frustrating that is, because it's a nice kind of shorter poem that just gives us a sense of, you know, what poetry, you know, was like at this time period, poetry written by a woman, that kind of thing. So I'll include this link to the University of Pennsylvania's version of the text, so it's not very long. Take your time and read through it. Make sure that you're looking up any words you don't understand, giving yourself some time, reading it through more than once. If you're a person who struggles with poetry, don't worry. This is fairly straightforward, but just sit with it, let it marinate a little bit so that you're, you know, ensuring that you understand everything before you move on. Again, I'll include this link, and my apologies. This hopefully is not going to continue happening with our newer edition. I've looked at most of our readings which are still present, but apparently this is not one of them. All right, so if we go back to the course text, just get comfortable clicking through, knowing how to move back and forth. You know, there are various tools that can be really helpful to you. So you can take notes, you can highlight text and, you know, make notes in the text, that kind of thing. You can print if you prefer, but it's a very limited amount just for copyright, you know, issues. So print sparingly if need be. But like I said, there you can change the font size by, you know, the view. You can listen to the chapter. Just do whatever it is you need to do to be as successful as possible in reading something like this, because again, it's not the spiciest reading this week, but things will get better, don't worry. All right, I'm going to take us back to our course page so that we can walk through kind of where to go and what to do for this week as we start to get a little bit more comfortable with the course and our course area in D2L. So if we go to our week 2 module, this is what it looks like from our schedule. Remember that you can find the schedule here as well. So we're reading the Anna Leticia Barbald. I've still included these page numbers because some of you might be working with that print version, which is pretty similar. And then there's a link because I want you to watch Chimamanda Adichie's TED Talk, The Danger of a Single Story. Some of you may be familiar with it. It's pretty famous. She's, of course, a wonderful and famous Nigerian author who is just amazing, and we'll actually read later in the semester. But I think some points that she makes during this TED Talk are just really helpful in giving us a sense of, you know, the broader picture of literature and what we need to think about as we read through, because we're reading a lot of white folks, you know, but this newer edition especially has done a lot to not just include the voices of white British folks, but of course people of color, people from formerly colonized places from Great Britain. So this really sets us up to be successful in the course and to think about those voices that are included in an anthology such as the one we have, but also there are voices that are not included, so we want to keep them in mind as well. You do have a discussion post that's due on Thursday, so that should be familiar to you based on, you know, what we did last week. This week you are required to respond to 2 people, so just engage with their thoughts and ideas. Don't just have, you know, a pretty lame response like, oh, I think you're right, you know. Show that you've read through their ideas and are thinking about what they've brought up. All right, you do have a journal that's due. I'll talk about that in a second, as well as the participation quiz and then that student survey, which some of you have completed and I really appreciate. Make sure you're setting aside a good amount of time to complete that as thoroughly as you can, because it's just so helpful to me. All right, so you're watching what will appear here. I've included the schedule and the syllabus here just so that you're reviewing them and clicking through them until you get pretty comfortable with where the information is located, because again, these are tools and resources for you as a student. If you click on week 2 discussion and jump to that area, this is based on all of our reading, right? So I want you to consider and write at least 2 paragraphs. What's the most important point Adichie makes in her video and why? And how does her video or this specific point that you've mentioned up here relate to our reading? Okay. All right, so remember, start a new thread, put your name and chosen pronouns if you prefer, and then make sure that you're double checking that your work was posted. That's always a helpful step. All right, if you scroll back down to the to-do area, we do have a journal this week, and I want you to note that we're, just like with the mind map, kind of easing into it. So you will have more specific, a more specific handout, a more specific video in the future, but we're just easing into that. What I really want you to focus on is your reactions and ideas as you read our period introductory chapter this week. I want you to imagine that you lived during this time period and you were an author of some sort, okay? So what would influence your writing? What do you think your life would be like? It's really important that we consider our identity to consider what our life would be like, right? Living in this time period. Okay, so I've given you kind of an example here of how to go about doing that, and there is a link here for the basic MLA template. So do not upload pages if you're working with a Mac, such like I work with a Mac. I have to either export my work to save it as a Microsoft Word document or as a PDF. Just make sure that you're uploading the right kind of document, because I can't open a Pages document, so I can't grade it, right? But if you click on this, it just takes you to a template that's really basic and straightforward. It just has all the information set up and spaced and all of that, because if you're using either the downloaded version of Microsoft Word, which I really suggest you do, you have access to that as a student at Lone Star, whether you're using that version or the online version, for some reason, Microsoft has set up defaults that are super obnoxious. So the spacing is weird, the font is weird, and so this version that I've shared here already has everything set up. You just have to go in and enter your information. Let me pause for 1 second. My computer is being a little frustrating, so eventually that will pop up, but just take your time and use the template just so that you don't have to do all the work yourself. Okay. If we go back to week 2, there is a link there to your quiz, which is going to be based on this video. It'll be based on all the reading that we've done this week. So just, again, the quiz is usually something I say, just do that at the very end, after you've done everything for the week, after you've let those ideas kind of settle, after you know where to go to find the information, if there's a question that you need to look up, that kind of thing. And then there's a link to our survey. So I'll go ahead and in the review section, I'll post the link, and I'll post it in our schedule here, the link to Anna Leticia Barbald's brief poem that I want you to look at. All right, so that in kind of a fast talking video full of frustration is our week. So remember, just we're easing into a lot of this. I know this looks on paper like a very busy week, a very heavy week. And in some ways it is, right? Because we're getting some of the kind of big assignments underway, but we're kind of, I have the expectation that we are not fully into the semester. You are not fully aware of what my expectations are, and my grading will reflect that, right? And just this hopefully is a week where you can click around, get used to our course text and the electronic version of that if you're using it, or the print version if you've gone that route. Let me know if you have any questions. Remember, you can always go to the discussion area and click on the Q&A to ask a question there. I appreciate that this is already a space that's being used. I urge you to also use the student-only chat if you would, kind of like that. Let me go ahead and go back here. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out and let me know. But good luck this week. I hope everything with all of your classes is going well.